Welcome into the Sports Objective. We're right here live on Facebook and obviously on our YouTube channel. Bubba Rosenbaum, how are you, sir?
Doing well, Dave. How are you?
Doing well in China Grove. How are things in LaGrange? Kyle from LaGrange Barber.
Just had a heavy rain shower come over, but besides that, things are well.
You know, we've had a bucket list here for the podcast. We started March 1st, 2018. This next guest that we have tonight is one we've wanted on since the very beginning, Bubba, and I guess there are no accidents. It's perfect timing to have him on tonight.
Absolutely. So much going on in the world in general, but in college athletics, so many tough decisions and challenges facing athletics administrators. And with that being the case, it's a perfect time to have this guy on. Welcome into the program, a guy who spent 3.5 decades at East Carolina University, Lee Workman.
So, gentlemen, how are you? Thank you for inviting me on the show.
We're very excited. First off, how you doing? Miss you around East Carolina and Greenville. How are things in retirement life?
Well, we're enjoying it. I don't want to take about that first 12 months or so. I just wanted to decompress and renew and revitalize. And my wife and I did a little traveling and spent a lot of time with families. Got a chance to do that. And we've had another grandchild enter the world since I've retired. So we have 2 grandchildren. And, just those that know me know I'm a to-do list guy. And that hasn't changed. Every day I got a to-do list to do. And there's things that I want to get to and read and see and stay connected into as much as I can. But just I've enjoyed having the opportunities to do what I want to do for a little while.
And Lee, I was telling Bubba this afternoon, getting ready for the interview with you, that if you didn't know it, you're one of the people that are lifers when it comes to Pirates. You would think that you have like several degrees from East Carolina and that you're undergrad and everything. But I know that you came to East Carolina back in 1984, right?
That is correct. I came to be an intern to finish off my graduate degree. I may be the person that's been at East Carolina the longest and never got a degree. So how smart am I? I don't know. But I've got, my wife has got her MBA from East Carolina, and she's on the faculty at East Carolina and still is. Both my children have their degrees from East Carolina. My son actually has his MBA. My daughter's working on her second degree right now, and have a brother-in-law that's got a degree, and all around me are the degrees. So, Jan and I are 36-year Pirate Club members. So, we're a part of the family, and we may not have a degree, but we're definitely a part of the family.
Well, Lee, you can be like Rodney Dangerfield and go back to school, right? Now that you're retired, you have time on your hands.
I could, Dave, but I don't think we're going to see that happen.
I don't blame you if you can spend time now. You put your time in, and certainly we're very honored to have you on and want to celebrate you. And I know that certainly we've been doing this show for almost 2.5 years, working hard, definitely promoting the Pirates as much as we can. And I know these guys we're all chomping in the bit. I want to get your take. We'll come back to your career, but I want to get your take starting off with all this mess of COVID-19. We heard today the Pirates now are down to 10 football games this year as we lost South Carolina today. So I want to get your take. Being an athletic administrator, I know this has got to be something that's way out of the norm, to say the least, from your lens, from your eyes.
Well, the COVID-19 obviously has thrown a wrench into everything. And, since that's occurred, it's hard to be proactive when you're in a reactive environment. And that's really what you're in right now. Every day may bring something different. You don't know what's going to happen, and what's happening this week and next week, and what the Big 12 will do. The pins will start to fall, and what's going to happen with football season. So, from what I can tell and discussions I've been in, everybody's trying to make football happen as long as it's healthy and safe for the student athletes and everyone involved. And you got student athletes and coaches and officials and all kinds of people are involved in that, not to make that happen. So I think that's what's trying to be done at the pro level, at the college level. And, but it's right now, it's just really hard. You can say one thing today and tomorrow it might be totally different based upon what's happening and what's happening this next week. So I know that not only at East Carolina, but all over the country, the athletic administrators are they're looking at all their different options. They're looking at what today brings. And, now with the Big 12, they'll have to make their decision. And then I would think that the American Athletic Conference, Conference USA, Sun Belt. You'll see all those conferences now start to do the same thing. And however that falls out, it's going to play out. Will East Carolina play 12 games? Will they play 10 games or 8 games? I mean, that's still all to be played out, and that'll happen over these next few weeks.
Lee, you mentioned the Big 12, and it had looked like the Big 12, and they still may. It looked like they wanted to keep on with the 12-game schedule. Kansas added a game when they lost an opponent. They had, I think it was Southern Illinois. And then I think just yesterday, Iowa State added Ball State. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, maybe the SEC and ACC's decision will change their mind. Just to play devil's advocate, if you could do so healthy, if you were the group of 5, if you will, if all the Power 5 leagues go to conference only or conference only +1 like the ACC, would you, if you could do it, would you just about schedule amongst yourself to make up the dates you've missed to get a little exposure the first couple of weeks with potentially a group of 5 being the only teams playing?
Well, I think that's definitely an option to look at. I think what's going to play into this as well is what each state's going to be doing. In other words, North Carolina's still in phase 2. So are they going to go to phase 3? Do you want your, in our league, in the American, you're already on planes to travel. The closest game to us, I think this year's in Temple. And Temple's 8 hours away. So you're already on a plane in the American. In Conference USA, you're pretty much on a plane every time. So you really just got to look at it all, and what are your presidents and your ADs thinking? What is your state's guidelines going to be? And what's going to be best for your student athletes? Do you want to put them on planes some more? Again, you're already putting them on planes eight times in our league. Do you want to put your student athletes on a plane again, or do you want to go, no, we're not going to do that? And we want to play a conference schedule and maybe one like the ACC's done, and maybe play that. It's got to be within 3 hours where you got to get on a bus, but not on a plane. And with all that's going on, having some off weeks in the middle of all this might be a good thing. And as far as what you might deal with, again, Kyle. It could be anything. I think you just got to sit down and collectively, as a league, as athletic directors, as chancellors, after the Big 12 does what they're going to do, then you really just have to determine, are there games out there, or are there the games you want to play?
Interestingly, you say that. Me and Bubba, because we're nerds, we're looking at this earlier, and there are some options for regional play. Charlotte, Appalachian, Coastal Carolina, Liberty, Old Dominion, all FBS now, and all have lost games that the weeks would work out with East Carolina for the 2 games we've lost.
Right, and that's I went back and looked at again today what the ACC said yesterday, and they basically said that non-conference game has to be played in North Carolina. It didn't say it had to be played against the North Carolina team, and so looking at that, North Carolina and NC State, Wake, and Duke all have a game they can play at home, and Duke has both Charlotte or Elon that they could play. So that'll free up one of those 2 games. One of those 2 teams are going to get freed up for a game. So I think I saw Appalachians got Wake Forest on their schedule, playing at Wake Forest. So that's probably going to be their non-conference game. Just guessing, what they're going to do. And so NC State, I think, had they had somebody at home late in November that they could continue to play as a home game. And North Carolina had the same thing. So they may not have open games. They may already have theirs in place. So it would be a Charlotte and Elon. It looks like App's probably got theirs. But like you said, an Old Dominion, Coastal Carolina, they're closer to us. Old Dominion's closer than Charlotte is. But you got Western Carolina. I don't know what they might have. So, again, that's what's going on right now, guys. You're on target. The athletic directors and the conference commissioners, they're all talking, and they're figuring out what each other's going to do to see what games might be available depending on what route that they can take.
And Elon actually isn't playing. They're in the Colonial now, and the Colonial has canceled their football season.
Right. So they're out. So that means Charlotte would be at Duke.
Yep.
And so, I think I saw something somewhere where James Madison was exploring maybe trying to play some games, but depends on what they're going to do. But again, if the Conference USA, the Sun Belt, the American, all were to go, let's say the Big 12 goes like the ACC, a +1, or, between all of that, you probably can find you some games, but that would mean, would you be playing Georgia State, or would you be playing Marshall?
Yeah.
And if the league says you can play one game, but it's got to be in the state of North Carolina, it's got to be at home. Well, that would be Marshall. If Marshall's in the Conference USA and the state of West Virginia says it's okay for you to play one extra game and go out of state.
Yeah.
So that's all the different variables that all the athletic directors and all the administrators and the conferences, it's not simple. None of this is simple. And so they're going to see what cards they get played tomorrow and the next day, and then they'll all be talking and they'll figure out what they're going to do. And then over the next 7 days or 14 days, they'll all reschedule games, or no, they won't be playing, or whatever that'll be. So, one thing I always enjoyed about being in athletics, every day you went in, it was always something different. And it's definitely that right now.
You mentioned about us being in phase 2. Hopefully maybe by the time September rolls around, we'll be able to go into phase 3 and at least be at, 20% capacity, 30% capacity, who knows? But potential of playing football games with no fans in the stands. Talk about that. I mean, particularly, I guess anywhere in this state draws pretty well in football, but at East Carolina, our fans are so important. Just how can you picture that? I can. It just seems so surreal picturing Dowdy Ficklin on a game day with no fans.
Yeah. If you're a student athlete, you want to play in front of fans. I mean, that's part of the whole. That's part of it. Is you want to play in front of your fan base, and you want to hear that support, and that's so important. And, the fans at East Carolina, I call the fans at East Carolina, they're the heroes of this program. We do everything we do to give young men and women a chance to go to school, get a great education at ECU, and develop them and help them grow, and so they can leave East Carolina and go be champions in life. And the heroes to that makes it possible, the reason we've grown and done what we've done at East Carolina, is the fan base. So to play games without them in the stadium and being able to be there certainly would be missed. But that may be where we're at. And looking at what I think I know, just where I think season tickets are at about 10 to 11,000. I think season tickets are at right now. You got students. With the students would come to a game, and then you got your fans, or your families of your student athletes, the families of your opposing student athletes, and whatever's contractually done with tickets there with an opposing team. If East Carolina's at 20, 25%, 40, maybe even up to 40%, with what they've got right now, there's not a lot of places to go for additional people to get tickets. And that's where the value of being a Pirate Club member and a season ticket holder and being in by the deadlines. Now, this is a rare situation, but it's just another example of why being a Pirate Club member and a season ticket holder, because you don't know what the situations are always going to be and where that'll really benefit you and beyond the normal every year benefit. So, I would think they will want to play with fans in the stands if it's allowed by what's going on in the state. I'm sure that Scott Lane and JJ and John and everybody there, Ryan, everybody that's involved in the game management piece, the security part of game management, the risk management of the campus, they're probably all sitting there thinking about, okay, if we go 20%, what can we do? How are we going to lay out the stadium? If we go 50%, how are we going to lay out the stadium? If social distancing is a part of it, and wearing, I think I saw NASCAR said you wear masks in the parking lot, you wear a mask into the gates, but once you get to your seats, you can take it off. There's that an option that they may have or may not have. So, those are the things that I'm sure they're putting plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and I all in place, or at least thinking them through. And then once they know, give them a chance to figure out how to do it. But it'll be strange, and it'll be strange in there without first down Pirates with 50,000 people yelling that, or a cannon going off, or yelling the purple gold cheer, singing and clapping to the fight song. It'll be a different animal in there without those things in there, for sure.
I got one more thing about that, and then I'll shut up and let Bubba talk. There was something that I was pondering, and this is getting down to semantics and legalities, and I don't even know if you know the answer to this. If the governor says, all right, no fans, but we're allowed to, have class, students are allowed to attend the university. The football stadium is part of the university. Could students still go in? I mean, what's the difference? If the students are around the players in class, why couldn't the students, as part of the campus, why couldn't students still at least go to the game, even if we're told no fans?
Well, I think that's a great, and I love the word ponder, man. Kyle, I love that word ponder. That's a great word. It really is going to depend on, and if the governor says, you can't, how he phrases that and how that comes down. So if he may go, you can't have fans coming from off campus, quote unquote, a paid ticket fan, so to speak. But, we're leaving it up to the Board of Governors and the general administration of UNC how you're going to operate your campus with your students. If your students are going to class, and if your they're going to Hendricks Theater to watch a movie, or they're going to, things like that on campus, they're going to the rec center, whatever that may be, they're in the new student center doing things there, then one thought process is, Kyle, is exactly what you're saying. The stadium's an extension, it's campus, it's on campus, it's extension of those things. Students should be able to go to the games. And so, that may be an option. That's right now, those are all things to ponder and think about. And until you get some marching orders, you don't know. And I would hope that if we've got students on campus and campus is open, that students would have the opportunity to go to a game, regardless of what maybe it is with anybody else.
Yeah. And I mean, August 10th, right? I mean, if we haven't, to be sure, if they were going to change students reporting to campus, that would have been announced by now, wouldn't it?
Not necessarily. I think, and I've listened in my my wife, Jan, they've had a lot of town hall meetings with the faculty about, the coming semester and what they should expect. And there's been some town hall meetings with the SGA, the Student Government Association, with students and families and parents. And so right now it's on go. They have, of what they're going to do. That's on go of how the students are coming to report into the dorms. That's done on a very different, staggered way than what's normally done. I have not seen anything on the rec center about exactly how that's going to be done. When they're supposed to wear masks, how they're supposed to go to class. So a lot of those things are already there. And right now, everything's on go. If the governor was to come out, or the UNC system comes out, because if they're going to call off campus, if they're going to call off being on campus, I think my understanding is correct that the system's going to do that. That won't be an individual institution decision. That will come from the system for all 16 campuses. So right now, everything's on go. I think next week the governor comes out with another. It's 3 weeks from when he last talked about where we're going to go next. So that'll come out. And again, it's the same thing in that environment that it is just strictly in the college environment. Once the decision's made, then the dominoes start to fall one way or the other. And, I'm hoping that, that they can get the semester in and they can be here on campus, and our students follow the guidelines that are put out there, that we can play football, with at least some fans in the stands, and get through an abnormal year, but to get through that and have that opportunity. But, we're dealing with something here that's a virus that, who knows, maybe there's a vaccine that starts to help, or maybe there's not, but it's really going to people, when it's put out, wear masks or social distance, it might be inconvenient, might not even agree with it, may not think it's something I do or anybody else, but that's what we're being asked to do, that the medical profession and those that are scientists that say this is what we think's the best thing to do. Then it's our job as citizens, and it's our job as Pirates when we want to play football to do those things, to give ourselves a chance to do the things we want to enjoy, and take the politics out of it and take everything else out of it. And, I guess it's, treat your neighbor as you want to be treated, and if you want your neighbor to take precautions so you don't get sick, then we ought to be doing that for our neighbors as well. And it may be inconvenient, might not be the way we want to do it, might not be we even agree with it, but it's what we need to do right now, based upon what we're being asked to do.
Yeah, just wear your mask. It's not that hard. Wear your mask. And one more thing, I promise. Then Bubba, I'm just going to pitch to you after this. Me and Bubba talked about this earlier too. To me, it would be a doggone shame if we didn't play football at this point, because the guys have been working out. Practice is going to start tomorrow. To me, they've already been exposed to each other at this point. It'd be a shame to not let them play.
Well, you're right, and I agree, Kyle. And I've had the opportunity to communicate with a couple of them, and they want to play. I mean, they want to play. They want to get out there. I think they don't want to get out there for 2 games and then everything get called off. And in our communications, I said, but you and your teammates, not only at East Carolina but across the country, and the teams that you're playing, have to do what they're being asked to do when they're on campus and when they're off campus at home or in their apartments or in class. And if everybody will do what they're being asked to do, they got the best chance to play. But if they go, well, I don't want to do that, I remember being 18, I was invincible at 18, nothing, and if they take that approach, then you start to see more tests come positive, more people, and now the opportunity to play lessens. And so, that was kind of some of the communications that we had, and I tried to help them understand, and they got it, they understood that. And I think I've noticed the last couple of weeks, watching the feeds that I'm in and some of the different things I'm watching, you're seeing athletic directors and administrations go, hey, we're going to take the next week off because we had this many positives. And that could have been as much for the student athletes to get their attention, because maybe they weren't doing everything they needed to be doing, and then went, hey, this is for real. And I've noticed the last couple of weeks with testing that's coming out that I'm seeing that there's a lot less positive tests, which tells me that the student athlete has probably got the message and realizing if we want to play, we got to do this, whether we want to or not, or whether we like it or not. If this is what we want, we've got to do these things and sacrifice self for the team, if you will.
Lee, before we shift back to talking about your 3.5 decades with the Pirates and discuss those years in a variety of ways, a couple of our loyal viewers and listeners chiming in. Johnny Gardner, he said, thought Elon and JMU said that they had wanted to play independent schedules. We definitely know that's a fact regarding JMU. I cannot say about Elon. And then also Bubba Grant, everything we're discussing, he said all these scenarios are a pipe dream as it stands right now. And Bubba Grant, it's hard to necessarily disagree with that.
Yeah, and he's right. I mean, it's preparing. It's preparing for the unknown, and that's really what you're having to do. And there may not be a game played. There really might not. I mean, but there might be. And I think the student athletes, most of them want to play. I mean, they want to get back in school. I mean, we've got relatives that are college age, nieces and friends and nephews and students at ECU that we stay in touch with. They all want to get back in school. They want to get back with their friends. They want to get back into their routines, just like all of us want to do. And I think everybody's trying to do that, but we just don't know. And it might be a pipe dream, but it might be a 50-50 chance. It might be 70-30 chance. But I think we got to prepare, and I think we got to be ready and have some different scenarios. And then we're just going to have to react until we know what we do. Even when you get into the season, we might play 3 games and all of a sudden something happened and you're done. But you might get all the way through the season, and obviously basketball in the wintertime. And so we're just in that kind of a mode right now. And I've always been an optimist. I've always tried to say in every adversity, there's the seeds of an equal or greater opportunity or a benefit. And so what can we find in this that's positive to try to be prepared and do? And then what lessons are we going to learn through all of this for the future? Because there's always going to be something unexpected. It could be an economic downturn. It could be a pandemic. It could be there's all kinds of things out there. And over my 35 years, pandemic that we're dealing with right now and the way we're dealing with it is the first time. But we've had these up and, the economy's gone down. This has happened. That's happened. You've always got unknowns, things that happen that you've got to figure out how to overcome and be positive about and make things happen. And that's where we're in right now. It's just with social media and all the attention, all the politicizing of everything. You don't know sometimes exactly what to believe and what not to believe. And you just have to be ready and see what happens and take a positive attitude toward it all the time. And that's how I did it for 35 years and tried to do it for 35 years. And I think that's what we got to do now is as a nation, as citizens, as Pirate fans, take the most positive way we can do the best thing we know how to do with what we have and make it happen the best way we know how. And we make a mistake, we figure it out and correct it and keep moving.
Hell, Lee, you want to run for president? I might vote for you for president.
Let's don't go any further into politics. How about that, Kyle? Let's stay right where we are. So, but hey, you never know. Maybe there'll be a candidate that'll come out there that everybody can get behind. Who knows?
Now, Lee, you talked about making things happen and going after the best. You talked about coming to East Carolina in 1984 as an intern under Dr. Ken Carr. And I know you stayed on, obviously, under Dave Hart, him coming in as AD and spent so many years on the marketing side of things. So just talk about those early years coming in when we were playing a who's who schedule of, LSU, Penn State, Miami, Florida State, et cetera.
Yeah, we were. I'm in my home office that I've established since I retired, and over next to me, I have the first poster that I ever did in the marketing side, which was the 1985 poster. We were going after the best, and we had, let's see, I'm going to look at it while I say this, but we had Auburn, LSU, and Miami. And I think Miami either won the national championship that year or the next year or the year before. Penn State, South Carolina. Then we had NC State on the schedule that year. So, I mean, we were playing those kind of schedules back then, and it was fun. And we were going on the road a lot. The next 2 years were very similar schedules to that. I came on as an intern. Dr. Carr gave me the opportunity as our athletic director, and Dave Hart was the assistant athletic director for marketing. And I became Dave's first full-time assistant. And Dave and I worked together those all 11. He was here about 11 months before I was, and we worked together during that whole time. And 6 months, 10 months into it, about 7 months in, they came to me and said, "Hey, if we create a position for you full-time, will you stay?" And I said, "Sure," excited to do so. And so we did. And 6 months after I was full-time, Dave became the head of the Pirate Club at that time when the Pirate Club director left. And so 6 months later, I was the director of marketing already and, had a lot of the responsibilities of the pig out and game day, the atmosphere of game day, ticket sales, marketing, promotions, special activities, meet the Pirates that we established. A lot of the things that you guys know today, and you were young then, Bubba, at that point in time. I'm not sure if you were even around then, but things that we didn't have. Tailgating, we were doing. Tailgating was not what you know today. It wasn't tailgating like you know today. And we did a promotion called "Ain't It Great to Tailgate" to kick off tailgating, and had the chamber involved and alumni, and just we had a vision for what we wanted for East Carolina football game days and what we wanted East Carolina football to be. And we put that vision into place, and then we went to work on it. And I was fortunate that Dave gave me a lot of latitude, and he'd keep an eye on me now, but he gave me a lot of latitude, and we'd talk about things and run things by him, and he'd have some ideas, but we had a great working relationship. And a lot of the things that you now know today as tradition or staples of East Carolina were developed during those times. Tailgating, the cannon, there was a cannon back in the 70s, but it had gone away. We brought the cannon back in the late 80s. A gentleman named Ken Howard, good Pirate fan, he and his dad made us a cannon. That's that we started back then. And then we brought in, John Seymour was the PA announcer. Sat down with John. I said, "John, we got to do something here," because John was a great voice. He was a great radio voice, but he was very dry. but he was a radio voice like that. And he said, Lee, we can't shade it one way or the other. We've got to be down the line. That's what the rules were in the NCAA. I said, well, John, we're definitely going to do that, but we're going to do it with a purple shade moving forward. And we talked about some things to do, and that's how First Down Pirates came about. And there's a funny story behind that if we get time about how it got to what it really is. And then, we brought on the purple gold cheer, and we started having music for the team entrance before there were video boards. And that's when we brought on the Purple Haze song. A lot of things like that started back in the 80s. And then we went on, and later we developed, the no quarter started when somebody came to us with an idea about no quarter, and that was later on, and went to Al Lockamy, a good pirate, to write the Ghost in the Wind poem that we then started to incorporate into what we were doing. And, did that. So I had an opportunity in my role to be a part of all that. And it was exciting to be a part of and watch us go from, 5,000 season tickets, or 4,000, I think it was back when I first got on, to at our peak at 22,000, and being a part of it through all those growth years. And attendance went from, where we were to where we were, 45th in the country, averaging almost 50,000, and being a part of that and what we were doing. And, I think over that period, there was a 28-year period of time that we had a 19% every 4-year growth in season tickets, and 11% growth every 4 years in attendance. And that was the same time that I was also working with licensing and our trademark licensing. And we averaged over that same period of time about 14% annual growth in licensing and branding and product sales. So I was right place, right time, at a program that was growing, at a community that was growing, at a university that was growing. And fortunate that we found some things that we found worked at East Carolina. And one of the things, and I talked about it earlier, we figured out really quickly when we got here the heroes of this program and how this program was going to grow and how this program was going to succeed was the fans. And grooming fans from young ages through as students at East Carolina, and generational fans. And we had a formula, and we had a foundation that we followed for a great long period of time, and it worked over a long period of time in what we did. And so, we just got to get back to that, and get the stadium filled back up, and get the culture and the atmosphere. We had something going where, there were articles being written across the state at one point that this was the best place to go watch a football game. The best football culture in the state of North Carolina was at East Carolina. And we were getting articles starting to be written about us from out of state when teams would come in. I said the best atmosphere outside of the SEC in the South is at East Carolina. And so we had a lot of really, really good things going. And that's just a tribute to the fans and everybody that was involved. And, I could start naming names of fans and volunteers and staff and that were a part of this and been a part of it for a long period of time. And I'd miss people, but that's why we grew. The Pig Out, there were volunteers that had been involved for 30 years of the Pig Out, still are involved, that made the Pig Out work, and that's what's so special about East Carolina. And if we can get everybody on the same page and get them unified and get everybody headed in the right direction, this place is a great place, and has opportunity to overcome its obstacles. And we have them, and we've always had them, but we've also figured out how to overcome them. That's part of our DNA at East Carolina, is figuring out how to overcome the obstacles to be successful.
Lee, when we spoke several days ago, setting up this interview, you referenced that 1985 game when the Gamecocks came to what was then Ficklin Stadium, and the way the Gamecock fan base traveled. Just touch on that for our audience, and just
sure,
the way they travel with those car flags and so forth.
Sure. That was part of our vision for what we wanted for East Carolina, because that wasn't what East Carolina, people didn't come 6 hours before the game. They would come, a few did, but they didn't come in like they do today. And they didn't come and do that. Their cars weren't flanked out with flags and banners and stickers and they weren't even all wearing purple and gold at the time like they do now. And so that was part of our vision of what we wanted the game day to look like. We wanted the fans to come excited, come with their flags, come with their banners, come dressed in their purple and gold tents. It was a family. We wanted it to be a family social event. you know, and we wanted to be the social event for family and friends in Eastern North Carolina, however many times we played. And so when South Carolina came, they were ahead of us in that route. They were ahead of us with the size stadium they had, what they were doing. And so when they brought 6, 7, 8,000 fans or more that day. They might have brought 10,000 fans. I think they brought 10,000 that day. So the stadium obviously was a lot of red, garnet, and black that day. And they came to town and they just took over the town. I'm gonna be honest, they took over the town. They were in all the hotels. Every car was in purple and it was in cardinal and black. Everybody was dressed that way. And for our fan base to see that, it was the model that we wanted them to see. And it worked out in our benefit. And they went, oh, this is what we're trying to do. This is what we want to be. We're going after the best. This is what we got to do to get better and be that. And from that point on, Don Edwards can tell you at the UBE, all of a sudden people are walking in his store wanting to buy car flags and wanting to buy banners and wanting to buy this and wanting to buy that. And he had to start ordering fast. But that model that fan brought in that all of our fans at that time could see really helped us just with the messaging and what we were trying to get to and for people to understand what if we wanted to be where we wanted to go, this is what it's going to have to look, this is what it looks like. And that was really we were tailgating was starting to grow then. We were pushing wearing your colors. We were starting to push all those things. But that day, that model, that example really helped our fans understand, hey, this is what we want to do. This was what we saw there is what we want to be. And that just helped us take it another step forward in what we wanted to do.
So there toward the 89 season, December of 88 to be exact, Bill Lewis was hired, really continued to change the culture of the program. The teams, we were knocking on the door in 89 and 90 and really missed, just on the verge of knocking off the likes of Georgia, Syracuse, Pittsburgh, up at Pittsburgh when they were so good. And so just talk about as a marketer and someone that's in marketing like you were, just what a dream that 91 season was, and just the chaos that was leading up to the Peach Bowl with the distribution of tickets and so forth.
Yeah. That's one of those memories I really remember is getting ready for the Peach Bowl. But all that we had done from 84 to 91, part of what we were trying, we grew season tickets during that time. We grew attendance during that time. And but we weren't doing it winning. And that's what we were trying to do. We were trying to set a culture of you come to the games and we're going to grow it and it's fun and it's exciting, win or lose. Now we want to win. Don't get me wrong, but we were trying to set an atmosphere that regardless if we were winning or losing, fans wanted to come to the games. They wanted to cheer. They had hope. Dave Hart calls it hope. But they were excited about it. They wanted to come. They wanted to cheer for their fans. They wanted to show their passion. And then when 91 hit, they went, oh, so here we go. And that gave us something like that then to continue to build upon. And it gave more hope to our program from the competitive side. And so people were having fun because they were still coming to our games and they were bringing their friends. We were growing, but that was then a chance to spike. And then we did. The next year, season tickets went up. And then we had a couple of down years, if you'll remember, but we never went below where we were before the 91 season. And then as we had another winning season, they popped again and everything. So we'd take a slow growth. We'd have a winning season of some type or two, and we'd take it a little bit further. But then when we'd have another, we'd go back. We never dropped drastically. We'd maintain and go up. And that was part of what our strategies were. That's part of the philosophies that we put in and what we were trying to do because it's ticket sales strategies, it's ticket pricing strategies, it's the marketing messaging, it's the game day atmosphere, it's all those things together. It's not just one thing. And on those years when you're winning and it all fits together, that makes it easier. But you also know that you're going to have a losing season again. So you still got to put everything in place, win or loss, what your plans are and how you want to approach it. So that year gave us a chance again to take another step forward, got national publicity. One of the things that we always have wanted at East Carolina is we want to be recognized and respected on the national level. And we were just kept making progress along the line to do that. And the 91 season certainly got us national publicity and helped us do that, helped us put our name out there as a university. And then we took that and we built on that. And that's what we just continued to do over many, many years.
Lee, Bubba may want to backtrack to something, but I'm going to fast forward a little bit here. We went through a couple down seasons when Coach Thompson was here as head coach, and Coach Holland comes in, and Terry Holland comes in 04, and JT's here. Terry makes a decision to cut ties with Coach Thompson, brings in Skip Holtz. Just talk about Terry Holland and bringing in Skip and just that whole thing. Seemed like the perfect storm.
Yeah, it did. And everything, what Coach Holland, have a great deal of respect for Coach Holland. He came in, obviously made that decision. But what Coach Holland also did is he kept people on our staff. He didn't make wholesale changes administratively. He kept all those of us. He had seen what we had done, and he said, keep doing what you're doing. I've got some thoughts and ideas, but he let us stay on the right track of where we were. We didn't make a lot of changes administratively in our marketing and in our ticket sales strategies. He had some ideas and he'd bring them in. We talk about them. Some of them we implemented. Some of them he go, no, guys, okay, stay where you're at. So Coach Holland was a great leader in that respect, and that he didn't come in and say, we're changing everything. He said, we're going to make this change I see needs to be done, but these other things we're doing well. So let's don't change what we're doing well, but let's continue to evolve and make it better and do what we need to do. And so he let, it was myself and Nick Floyd. Jimmy Bass was back here at that time on his second stint with us, what we were doing in the ticket office. And, he kept no matter what, I was on the front lines for a lot of times, but then as time went on, there were other things I was starting to do in the administration. And so, but he kept those of us to make sure we stayed on track. When somebody new came in, we didn't all of a sudden make a change. We stayed on the path we were on with our fundamentals and our philosophies of what we were doing. And that allowed us to keep growing. And then I think Skip's first year was a losing season, if I remember correctly. And then the next year we got better, and then we got better. And then we got to those 2 championships. And again, what we had done all along paid off again, and we got to where we wanted to go. So, and Coach Holland was great at understanding. One of the things that Coach Holland understood very quickly is about our fans. He understood who the heroes were. He understood it didn't matter if it was a $100 Pirate Club member or a $100,000 Pirate Club. It takes 50,000 Pirate fans to fill a stadium, and everyone was important. It didn't matter whether you were $100 Pirate Club member buying 1 or 2 season tickets, or whether you were the #1 Pirate Club member in contributions and buying 20 season tickets. Everybody, he understood the importance of everybody, as we all did. He figured that out pretty quickly and listened and determined that, and allowed that to stay a part of understanding where we wanted to go and how we were going to get there. And he was great with the fans. He was great in how he communicated with the $100 Pirate Club member, and he could communicate with the $100,000 Pirate Club member, and the fan that was, the fan that was an alum and the fan that wasn't an alum. He could communicate with them, and we had a number of people on our staff that could do that at the time, and understood that. So he did what a leader is supposed to do. He let his people do what they do best. And then also found other things that we need to do. That was the time, we had just a couple of years before he got here, and Mike Hamrick, I'll give him credit. He did the same thing when he came. He didn't make wholesale changes. He says, y'all are doing a lot of good things here. Just keep doing it and let me learn. And he did the same thing. And, we got to where we were hosting baseball championships. We figured out how to do that at Wilson, and was fortunate enough to put those bids in and orchestrate those, and Wilson and Kinston. And then we finally got to do one at Clark LeClaire in 2009. So what Coach Holland did was he realized what we had, and he let us go, and he led us, and he worked with us, and he'd allow us to talk things through. We maybe all didn't agree, but he'd allow that to happen. And then we'd come out, and one of the things Dave Hart taught me early, and Coach Holland was on this same line, we can talk it through, and we may not all agree, but at the end of the day, we got to make a decision. And if it was his decision or whoever's decision it was to make, when we walked out of the room, we were all 100% following that decision in unity. And that unity, from my experience, I want to be going somewhere in unity, even if it's not the perfect route, you're going to move forward. And you can make adjustments and get on that faster track if you need to. But if you're not in unity, I'd rather be in unity, not on a perfect track, than in disunity. And you think you're on a track, but you're in disunity, you're not going anywhere. And so I was taught that early on, and I've always operated that way, that we're going to come out. I may thought, well, that idea might have been a little better, but if we're all in unity, we're going to head this way. We're going to head this way 100%. And then we'll adjust if we need to, if we find that there's a correction or so that needs to be made, and get back on the super highway. We just might have been on the detour highway, but we were still moving forward. And really through those, all the things that we did, we tried a number of different things over time. Some things worked, some things didn't. And we stayed with the things that worked, and then we set aside those that didn't. But they weren't program breakers, the things that didn't work. And we didn't maybe put all our eggs in one basket. We'd try something. If it worked, then we'd add on. But Coach Holland allowed us to have those discussions, and then we'd walk out of the room 100%, and we kept moving forward. And when East Carolina, as an internally in an athletic department, because I think success and excellence is an inside job. It starts on the inside, and then it works out from there, whether it's individually or as a group in a department or a fan base or whatever. It works out. And we were able to do that and be unified in some things. And when East Carolina's been at its best, during my 35 years, we had a vision, there was hope, and we were unified. And did everybody agree exactly? No, but everybody got on board and went with the direction, and would ask questions. Naturally, should ask questions, that they should and should get answers. May not always agree with the answer, but get an answer, and that's respecting people when you do that. And then you stay on that track, and then when you find it's really not going somewhere, then you adjust or you make adjustments. And guess what? We're accountable in our positions, and if it doesn't go right, there's a AD for the associate athletic directors and the staff. There's a chancellor for the AD, and there's a board of trustees for the chancellor. And if you're not getting it done and you're not being accountable to what you're supposed to do, then guess what? Changes happen. And that's part of it. But if you give people responsibility, I always think you got to give them responsibility, then you got to give them the ability to run, and then you got to hold them accountable. And Coach Holland did that.
Somebody Terry Holland brought in during that time that I missed at East Carolina a lot. And, I hope one day maybe he finds his way back here. Scott Weatherby. What are your thoughts on Scott?
Scott's up at, is it Eastern Michigan? Yeah, I think Scott's up there as their AD. I haven't, again, the last time I saw him was that when I was in that COO role, leading the department on a daily basis while Dave was here as the advisor. I saw him up at some AD meetings, because I was at all the AD meetings for the conference or national meetings that were going on for our program at that time. And he seemed to be doing well there. Haven't talked to him in a while. And so I don't know if Scott will come back, be back. It's a crazy, you just don't know. It's a crazy world, but he's from what I can tell, he's done a good job up there. He's had to deal with some sports, eliminating some sports in their situation. So, but yeah, I don't know. I don't even know what Scott's desires are. Scott, they're from that part of the country, so they may want to stay up there with family. They've got kids and grandparents and all that too.
Not trying to run John Gilbert out of town, but Scott would come back.
Lee, you talk about the leadership ability of Terry Holland, and that's one of the things, like you said, when he came in, he didn't try to change everything. He knew when to interject, but at the same time, he wasn't a micromanager. He let people do their jobs, and I think that's certainly reflective of a true leader like Terry was and is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you talk about having to make that difficult decision to eliminate sports. I know back in, I guess it was 2005 or the beginning of 2006, you guys had to make that tough decision to eliminate men's soccer. And John Gilbert and this administration had to make that difficult decision to eliminate 4 sports. So just talk about that process, because I know an awful lot goes into it. And I can only imagine how gut-wrenching it was for all involved.
Well, with what's going on with COVID and seasons and not seasons and the decisions that have to be there, that doesn't compare to a decision when you've got to eliminate a sport and reduce opportunities for young men and women. And especially when you know them, the coaches that are involved. And so, you have to really look at it. You have to study it, and you got to look at, what's in the best interest of the total program, and the program moving forward. And you look at data. You have to look at real data. You have to look at the situation you're in. You have to look at the reality. Sometimes there's brutal facts that you got to face, whether you want to or not. And those are just decisions that no athletic administrator wants to have to make. But we're in a college athletics as a whole right now, and has been, and I use the term, it's in an unsustainable financial model. And it's not just East Carolina. It's the Division I model that we're in right now. And it's been developing over the last 20 years and really the last 10 to 15 years. And it's an unsustainable model. And there's been, I think I've counted 23 institutions now that have either used the word have eliminated sports or indefinitely suspended sports. And I think there's over almost 60 sports now, 60 teams over 23 universities that have been eliminated or indefinitely suspended, whatever that means, which is the same thing. And so that's that COVID, all COVID did related to that piece of the pie is it brought it quicker than it was going to happen. It was already on the horizon for many programs along the country that they were going to have to face this and figure out either a way to do it without eliminating programs or eliminating programs. And all COVID did was expedited the process and brought it to the forefront for the fans, for the media, that what people behind the scenes could see coming. We're hoping they could find ways to not have to get to those types of decisions. But, over the next 2 to 5 years from 2 years ago, programs were going to have to look at that. And there were programs all over the country that were going to have to look at that. And COVID just expedited the process. And I don't think it's over. I think you're going to see more programs have to do this. And when COVID is behind us, and it'll eventually be behind us, that's not solved what's the root of all these problems that are going on. It's this unsustainable financial model. And there's got to be some Division I athletics. It has to look at the model and what that model is, and what's good for the whole and not what's good for the self-interest of a few, and figure out how to correct that, because there's going to be more of this that's got to come about. And when COVID goes away, that model's still there. It's not solved. It's a symptom. What's going on now is symptoms of what's at the root of the problem. And they've got to get college athletics at the Division I level, got to get to the root of the problem and figure out what it is, so that there's 257 schools, I think, playing Division I football, whether it's FBS or FCS. For college athletics and Division I athletics affects the athletic world, football from little league to now, and the businesses that are a part of it, and that there's everything that goes on around college athletics. So if all 257 schools can optimize their abilities to succeed in their environments, then everybody wins. But if only a few do at the expense of everybody else, then it's not, college football is not going to have the impact on the country, on everything else that it does. And I just believe that college athletics at the Division I level, the leadership and everybody involved has just got to step back and pause and say, where are we going and where we want to be in 5 years and 10 years. And if we keep going where we're going, is what we're going to see in the future, what we really want. And, there's smart people still involved in college athletics, a lot of smart people. And I'm hoping that they'll do that, most importantly for student athletes, because right now they're cutting opportunities, and there's going to be more opportunities cut. The model needs to be that opportunities aren't being cut, and maybe we could increase them or somehow. But universities are, it's fine. Financial times aren't going to get better quickly after COVID. And like I said, at East Carolina and other programs, the fan base that are Pirate Club members and season ticket holders are going to be the difference makers in a lot of ways, because student fees have gotten about to their limit and were even before COVID hit. Universities across that can put state funding into their programs. You can't do that in North Carolina, but those that are, I saw today that the state of Nevada has reduced both UNLV and the University of Nevada by about $1.5 million each this next year from their state funding allotments that they get. So that's going on all over the country. So that means revenue reductions. East Carolina, we were operating at 2018 expense levels, but our season tickets and our revenues had dropped to 1997 levels. That doesn't work. So Carolina was doing a good job. We had 4 audits before I retired that last year and a half because we're not spent well. Our staff and they were doing a good job. We were expense wise compared to what we were supposed to be doing in our league. We were doing a great job. We were holding expenses, had one of the smallest budgets in the league expense wise. Our issues weren't that. The last year that when I was asked to get involved with the budgets and all the finances before I took on the COO role, we met with everybody and said, hey, we got to get this in line. And we started doing that. We did some things. We did that budget reduction that one year and everybody got up in arms. But if we didn't do that, that was the right business thing to do at that time. And we brought, if you look at the information that came out a few weeks ago when they were talking about the elimination of sports, if you look at that budget, we brought that expense budget in that year under what revenues were the year before, which is that 17. I don't have all my years in my head. So we brought expenses. We did that reduction. We brought our expenses in right. The problem was revenues went down again. 3,000 more season tickets in football, and that's where the deficit came about. Not from where we weren't spending right. We did all we could do in that environment. And what was acceptable to do, we got it. We did that, and we reduced it. And we brought expenses in under what we said we were going to do that year. The problem was revenue went down more, and we couldn't get it that far. And so a lot of our teams were operating at that time on bare bones, really budgets for what they should have been competing against in our league. And now we're in a different environment now. COVID, and there's a whole different now looking at no plane travel, no things that you couldn't really do then, but now schools across the country are going, hey, we got to find a way to do some of these things, and they're starting to do it. So, the unsustainable environment financially, there's got to be some solutions figured out, or it's not going, unless there are, we're going to keep seeing some of the things that are going on now continue to go on.
One thing John Gilbert said he'd like to see, and I think you hinted about it without saying it, he said he would like to see conferences get together regionally and play Olympic sports regionally instead of conference play. So where East Carolina would be playing App State, UNC, whoever regionally in volleyball, for example, instead of traveling to SMU.
I agree. Really football ought to be doing the same thing. Really. I mean, if you really want to look at it, football's based on regional rivalries. That's what people are interested in. They want to see regional rivalries played. And you can play a conference, you can get a regionally aligned conference with regional rivalries involved in it. Maybe not every team in your region there, and you play out of conference games that gets for television or out of conference regional games. I think it's across the board. It may not be possible to do across the board and may have to settle for just the Olympic sports to do that. But that it would make more sense. Why is East Carolina, when we were in Conference USA, traveling to Texas, El Paso? We're now in the American, and we're spread. There's nobody closer to us than Temple, and they're 8 hours away.
Navy in football.
In football, and so it doesn't make sense because you're putting all these teams on planes. So yes, I agree with what John's saying. A regionally based conference with everything but football. Maybe basketball. I like to see, but you could, if everybody would swallow their egos a little bit, swallow their pride a little bit, and look at what's the best common interest for the long term of college sports. Hey, let's do some of this, and let's rearrange some of this, and let's put Boston College and Syracuse and Temple and Penn State and Buffalo, whatever schools you want to pick up there, and put yourself a 12-team league or a 10-team league. It plays 9 conference games in football, and then plays, just 3 conference games. Do something like that. Or again, there's enough quality. Why does baseball, and baseball is important at East Carolina, but why does baseball need to fly to Washington or California or anywhere? You got enough teams in east of the Mississippi and in Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina to play good quality baseball out of the league. And same thing with softball and all the Olympic sports. So I agree. I think that a regional based, it will be more efficient and more effective with expenses, because you don't generate revenue from those sports. And, really the only sports that you can generate revenue from and that you fund from is football and basketball football at everywhere. And basketball at some places can get you on a real profit center. Some places it's break even, some it's not, but they're really the only places where you can really create positive revenue for your program.
That's when you talk about just the regional model, and when college athletics were in a different time. That's what made the SEC great. Those regional rivalries, and especially in football, but other things as well. And then obviously ACC in basketball, and then you think about the Big East in basketball, and which is obviously one of the reasons UConn wanted to go back to the Big East, because of those rivalries that they had back in the day.
Well, that's where college. You work with people. You work with people that went to those schools. So you go to work every day, and it gives y'all something to talk about and brag about and give each other a hard time about and cut up about. And, and so does the fan at Boston College and the fan at the University of Miami, do they, really, and they're great universities, great fan bases, but do they really care? Boston College would rather play UConn, Syracuse, Penn State, West Virginia, Temple. Think about if Penn State, West Virginia, Syracuse, Boston College, Connecticut,
Pitt,
Temple, Rutgers, Maryland, even. Wow. That'd be they would all care about each other. They'd be interested in those games now. You talk about selling out games and interest. If you look at just in North Carolina, Virginia, South Carolina, Florida, Georgia, you could put together some leagues there that would be awesome, and so you could do that, but everybody's going to have to go. It can't be the select few. If that makes sense to you? It can't be the elite few. It's got to incorporate everybody. And guess what? Everybody will prosper in that. And Alabama's still going to have advantages in that scenario. Yep. And Tennessee's still going to have advantages in that scenario. And the University of North Carolina is still going to have advantages in those scenarios. Get it to the point that you just can't outspend somebody for your competitive advantage. Let's put it in the hands of coaches and student athletes and fan bases, and put it in their hands to develop talent and cheer for talent and be team efforts. That's the competitive advantage, or the competitiveness, not we can outspend you, therefore we can win, because you can't spend what we can to do what we do. So anyway, you guys are going to get me on a soapbox now if you keep going.
Now, Lee, you talked about, you've referenced a lot of the different athletics administrators, or ADs specifically, that you worked with and under, but just talk about a guy who you were in the department with for more than a decade plus, Dr. Henry Van Sant. I know he bled purple and gold, and of course you have the seat memorial for him out in the jungle with his, I guess, a bag of peanuts, I think it is.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Dr. Van Sant, what a great guy, what a great person. Loved East Carolina, as loyal could be to East Carolina. Learned a lot of things from him during my time. He back in the 80s, he reestablished and brought the Hall of Fame back. He was behind that with Dr. Carr. After it was a 5-year hiatus there, and I got to be a part of that, working with him. And I did the weekends. He did the selections with the committee, and then I did everything else around it. And then when he stepped out of that role, I got to be the secretary of the Hall of Fame. So I got to be with him and learned what he did there and what that was about. And, he had the history of the program. He knew where things were, how things were done. And so he and Erling Leggett, I don't know if that's another name y'all may or may not remember. She was a long time here. She started out with Coach Stasovich's secretary, then became our business manager. And now you talk about somebody who knew how to handle money. Miss Leggett knew how to handle money. But Henry Van Zant was great. And coach here, alumnus, played here, great administrator for our program. And, can't say enough positive things about Coach Van Zant.
Lee, we're going to talk about all these different ADs. Not gonna put you in a tough spot here, but just how can I put it diplomatically? Why didn't Jeff Comfort get the East Carolina fan base?
Now what did Kyle just say? I'm not going to put you in a situation here, Lee. And then he said, let me see how I can say this diplomatically. Now, I knew what was getting ready to come my way. I knew he was getting ready to.
That was diplomatic for me, Lee.
Yeah, okay, I got you, Kyle. I had the opportunity to work with 5 different athletic directors: Ken Carr, Dave Hart, Mike Hamrick, Terry Holland, and then Jeff Comfort. And in that mix, people may not realize that Nick Floyd was the interim athletic director for over a year when he was here as well. And then, Jeff. And I know people have a lot of different thoughts about Jeff, but I got to work with him day to day. Jeff was not a bad person. Jeff was a good person. And Jeff tried to do right. And he tried to do what he thought was right. And I just think that, without getting into it, I just think that some things just didn't go right. I just want to say it that way. I don't want to get past that, but it wasn't for lack of heart of wanting to do right. It wasn't for lack of wanting this program to succeed. It wasn't for lack of wanting those things to happen. And he cared about it. It just some things didn't go right for a number of different reasons that I choose not to talk about, to be quite honest. And I know fans want, be transparent. Well, there's things in your family that you don't talk about in public, in your own personal families. And we're a family inside that administration. And I just think there's things that need to stay in the family, and just things just didn't go right. And this just didn't work out. And it's not because he didn't try. Well, not because he was a bad person. He was a good person, and he tried, and it just didn't work out. And he cared. And I just kind of like to leave it at that. If that's okay with you, Kyle. And there may be some fans out there that are going, but I just think it's best sometimes that some things need to stay in the family. In that part of our family, this needs to stay there. What my thoughts are on that process.
I can respect that, Lee.
And Johnny Gardner chiming in with a couple of things. One, he says, Lee, thank you for your service over the years. You had quite a ride. I had your wife as a professor. She was excellent as well, always willing to help her students outside the classroom, and was much appreciated.
Well, Johnny, thank you so much for those comments. And I'm kind of partial to Jan myself there, but she does. She's like me. We both really care about the students and the student athletes. That's why we were on a college campus. I got involved in college athletics because I wanted to make a difference in the lives of 18 to 22-year-olds through the college sports world. And then an opportunity to make a difference in the lives of those I worked with and everybody around me and fans and et cetera. And so she's the same way. She cares about her students. She wants them to grow and learn, and she cares about them beyond whether they get an A, B, C, D, or an F. And she's got students that call her to this day, come by and see her during this pandemic. We've had some of her students that are still at East Carolina that have called and said, Miss Workman, can we come see you? And we go out on the back porch and do our social distancing and talk with them. And so she cares about them. And Johnny, thank you so much for your comments there. I'm going to pass those along to her. She will be very appreciative of that.
And Johnny's question for you, being that you were obviously here when Coach Dooley was getting it done the first time and unfortunately was let go. But he said, Lee, can we ever make it in basketball? You were around when Harrison Steele, Payne Dooley, et cetera, were having some success at times, but we're never ever able to build that consistent winner.
Yeah, I do. I always thought we had, but we had to do some things to support basketball to give them an opportunity. I thought Joe was on the right track back in the 90s when he was the youngest head coach in Division I. Henry Van Zant is who took Joe when Eddie Payne left, And we were in an interim phase at that time without an AD, and Henry's who made the decision to make Joe the head coach. And people may or may not remember that. And I was fortunate enough this past year, that when we made the change, that Dave and I were the ones that were doing the search and got Joe to come and worked very closely with Joe. And Joe did a masterful job. I mean, a masterful job in his first year with all the things that were going on with that program and what we needed to do and how we needed to treat some things. He just did a masterful job. I think he's brought a good staff on. I have not had the opportunity to, Raphael left and they've got a new assistant coach, and I've not had a chance to meet him yet. But Joe, because he was here in the 90s, he understands the East Carolina program. And he knows what it takes to be successful here. The experience he's had after he left here has only prepared him better to do that. I believe that you're going to see the basketball program again this year. I had us on a schedule, knowing what Joe was doing and being intricately involved with him on a daily basis before I left. And we've communicated since I've been, before the COVID hit, we stayed in communication. And I think Joe had it really going on the right track and still does. This is going to put us back a little bit just because he hasn't had all spring and summer to work with these young men and continue to develop them for what was, because I don't think you saw where this team could be last year. They were getting there, but they weren't there yet. And, but everybody else in the country's been the same way. So that may help a little bit. But I think you're going to see the men's basketball program and I think you're going to see the women's. I've had a chance to have some discussions there and with our coaches and what they're doing, and our head coach there. And I think you're going to see both of them, but I think you're going to see the men's basketball program, if it can stay on track. And it's just a crazy world in basketball right now with transfers and the way things happen and all that. But I think Jaden Gardner's committed, to East Carolina for his 4 years. And I think if the others will do the same thing and stay with us and be about team and not always about me, I think you're going to see that program over the next 2 years make some improvement that it's going to be very exciting. And I don't want to put pressure on Joe and his staff and those guys, but I think they're doing a lot of the things right. I think they're giving themselves an opportunity. I think administratively, we've done some things, and John, I think, has continued to do some things, I think, from what I think I know, to give them opportunity. We're just in a strange time right now, and anything can happen, but Joe's good. Joe's really good. He understands East Carolina. He understands what it's going to take to win. He and his staff they are recruiting machines. They are recruiting machines, and it starts with recruiting. That's your lifeblood of your program. Steve's really good. I think Steve's really good. Rockefort, he's got a good group there. So I think you're going to see basketball, in our league. If you can get in the top half of the league, you got a shot at the NCAA tournament. You don't have to win the league to get to the tournament. You're not a one bid league. And one of the things I think that attracted Joe here was understanding he was in a one big league. He knew that coming here, he was in a 4 or maybe a 5 bid league for the NCAA tournament. And then your next 1 or 2 are going to get to the NIT. And so, when he gets to the top half of the league, which I think he can, it's going to be hard, going to be competitive. Then all of a sudden, East Carolina's in a chance to go to the NIT and the NCAA tournament, not having to win the championship to get there. And then once you get there, hey, that's what March Madness is all about. We've watched it every year. There's a team or two gets hot, right mixture of people playing the right mixture of teams. Before you know it, they're in the Sweet 16 or the Final 8, sometimes the Final 4. You never know what can happen once you get there. And Johnny, I think if I was a basketball fan, I don't think I'd wait too long to get on board as a season ticket holder and Power Club member for basketball. I think you're going to see it. You could already start to see it last year toward the last half of in February, March. I had some Pirate fans in November, December, early January I ran into, and they were ready to jump off the bridge, and I said, gang, just relax. This is what it probably should be right now. Just wait till you get to February. When you get to February, I think you're going to start to see something that's going to be the future of this program. And that's exactly what happened, because he had all new players. Think about it in where you work. If you had everybody on your staff and your co-workers and everybody left and a whole new group of 12 or 13 came in, what would that first year look like in your workspace? Everybody's got to get to know each other. They got to trust each other. They got to figure out what you're going to do, who's going to zig when who zags. And that's what they were doing last year. And you could start to see it in February, them all starting to get comfortable and figure each other out. And I think you're going to see more of that. And the talent level from player 1 to player 15 is the best I've ever seen at East Carolina during my tenure. From 1 to 15. We've had some good ones come through now, Blue Edwards, and we've had some good ones come through, Musi Abadian, and we've had some good ones, but 1 to 12, 1 to 15, 1 through 9 is the best talent I've ever seen at East Carolina, and it gives us a chance. And it's talent and size and athletic ability that is matching up closer to what we see in our league than what we've ever had before too. So that's why I think there's going to be success and we have a chance. Joe knows the program, their recruiting machines, the talent level he's bringing in is on level, and it's a deeper pool of athletic ability. And if you look at the academic side, I've always contended that the academic side is important, and understanding what kind of team you got as the athletic side. And you look at what baseball's doing. They're doing great academically. They do great on the field, because you can't be excellent part of the time. You teach to be excellent all the time. Classroom, field. So the basketball team, the GPA that they had this past year with the new group, what they've done there is better than where we were before. He's brought in a young man that they got that piece of the pie. So he's teaching excellence all around, and he's expecting excellence all around. And I truly believe that people will rise to the expectations they're asked to fulfill. And he's asking for those expectations, and he's getting them. So we're seeing it in the classroom, and we're seeing it on the basketball court. So Johnny, that's why I think it is, and I think you're going to see it. We just, hopefully, that we show Joe appreciation by filling the stands, just like Mike Houston and our teams. We need to show how we can best show those coaches. People, we need them to stay here longer. Well, the best way we can show them that is to fill the stands with pride, with loyalty, with passion, and show them they've got support, and give them the best chance to have home field advantage they can get. And they notice that, and they want to be in that environment themselves. They want to be appreciated. They want to know they got support. And, that's how we can do that for our teams and our coaches, and help them recruit. When recruits see full stands, they want to come to places where they're going to play in those kind of atmospheres.
Yeah, and also I would add to that, and you mentioned it briefly, talking about filling the stands. If we're able to, get out and support women's basketball. Kim McNeil is a friend of the program, and she's doing a great job. And you talk about turning the season around. The end of last year, our ladies could just about go with anybody on the court.
Yeah, and same thing. It took her time, and she'll have some more new, she'll have some new faces this year. And I got a chance to spend some time with her. And it was the first time I watched her press conference. And again, from being in what I've been in all these years, I was looking for maybe things different than the fans look for. And I was really impressed with some of the things she said and how she said it, the way she carried herself in the press conference. And I got a chance to spend about an hour or so with her one evening. It was at a Super Bowl gathering, and just got to know her as a person and what she was about. And I walked away extremely impressed, and thinking that we got a good one there. And for our program and for our student athletes, those young ladies. And I think she's going to do a really nice job there too. So I think we've got some good leadership and coaching positions all throughout our program that can do a good job there. We've got to give them support and give them tools and let them know they're appreciated. And again, I guess everybody will probably get tired of me, but that's what I truly believe. The fan base is the heroes. And the way for us to be successful is to join the Pirate Club, buy season tickets, and be in the stands, be loud, be proud, and be passionate about our team, and get behind them and support them. And even when we don't necessarily agree with the call they made, or we don't agree with this or that, or a decision that John Hill Gilbert or the administration makes, say, okay, they may know something I don't know. Let's get behind it and let's see how it goes. Then if corrections aren't made, if they're not, then we make those corrections. But I think unity will help this program get a long way down the road. And It's just everybody saying, what's the old saying? There's no I in the word team. Everybody get on the team and let the team play first. Let's get on the team and be a part of that. And then if things don't go right, then ask questions. That's what fans should do. Ask questions, and they should get some answers. I mean, that's what those people in position for 35 years should do, is give answers when you get questions. May not be always the answer you want, but at least be honest, respectful, and give the answers as best you can.
Yeah. And one more thing for me, and then I'm going to let Bubba close it out. We are currently looking for a new executive director of the Pirate Club. If you were making that hire, what would you look for in a new leader of the Pirate Club?
Wow. Well, I'm going to give you a political answer. Sorry about that, Kyle, but that's what I'm going to do. It depends on what John and the executive board of the Pirate Club are looking for. Are they looking for a get out on the road and go get them all the time fundraiser? Are they looking for somebody to come in and be a really good leader, administrator of the Pirate Club with some fundraising, very targeted fundraising that they'll do that can lead? Because other than Mark Hessert and Matt Maloney, who are two very experienced individuals, the rest of that staff that's a fundraiser are young or will be young. The ones that have left were young. So you got to lead, you got to teach, you got to mentor. And they don't have some of the experience. So it really depends on what they're looking for. Is John going to be a real out there fundraiser as an athletic director? So if that's the case, and he needs somebody more, somebody to be that fundraiser, but they really got to lead internally, or does he need somebody that's going to be out there fundraising, and then you rely on a Mark Hessert, for example, in the role he's in, to be your internal leader, administrator within that program that you can rely on and trust. And Mark's 30 years into his career now. So is Mark going to stay around 5 more years, 2 more years, 10 more years, 1 more year? So that you got to be thinking about the future and not just right now as well. So it really depends on what John and that executive board are wanting, and what they're wanting to do, and what they're thinking about long term. And some people will say, well, they got to have an East Carolina background. Maybe not. It just depends. It really comes down to the individual and their experience base. And, like I said, I can name people that have come in here that were not East Carolina alums, but they picked up on it. They learned it. They wanted to know it. They understood the culture, and they thrived in it. And we thrived in it. So it's been proven that somebody outside and somebody inside, Dennis Young came in, was an alum, fundraiser, and he did a great job. He was one who was an alum, so you just got to find the right fit, the right person for what they need, thinking short-term and long-term.
Lee, you had read my mind with your previous statement, as far as, because I was going to ask what you would say to Pirate Nation, but you've been so generous with your time tonight, and there's so much more that we can talk about, but we want to respect your time. We appreciate you going so long with us. But before we let you go, I want you to plug your blog, because I know you do some blogging about the inner workings of college athletics and athletics administration on the Division I level. So just talk about that.
Sure. Well, hey, tell Dave that I'm not offended that he didn't want to stay and listen the whole time now. So just make sure you give him a hard time for me. Okay. But yeah, I as I've took that first year and just kind of relaxed and revitalized, and I wanted to start to do some things. And I've been working on maybe do an LLC where I may do some consulting and some project management, some advising. But obviously COVID's kind of put that on hold with where everything is. And so I started a blog about a month or 2 ago. And it's not about East Carolina. It's about the big picture of college athletics. The blogs, I put one up Monday. I don't know if you guys have seen it yet or not, but I've done one. I did one as recently as Monday. And the first blogs have been more about this financial unsustainable environment and talking about that a little bit. The last 2 or 3, and there's one more coming, is about the Division I model and some options for the Division I model. And 2 of them are more of an evolution of where we are now. One of them, the one I just put up, is an out of the box model, and it is out of the box for sure. but you got to think out, if nothing changes, nothing changes. And sometimes maybe you got to look a little out of the box and maybe not go that far. And that's something we've had to do at East Carolina. Something I remember Terry talking about. Guys, don't be afraid to look out of the box. Do what's right for East Carolina. And sometimes we may have to look out of the box to do what's right. They may not be doing that at other schools, or they may not be doing that in the pros. We got to do what's right for us. And sometimes it was out of the box, and sometimes it was slightly out of the box, and sometimes it was something maybe somebody else was doing. So I'm doing that. My Jan, my wife, says it's great therapy for me, is what she says. And but if you have an interest, you go read it. It's called talkingcollegiateathletics.com. And you're welcome to go look at it. You may agree, you may not agree, but the purpose is to provide information to the fans and those that aren't in the everyday world of college athletics. That when you hear an administrator make a decision, or you see something happen and you go, I don't get it. Maybe there'll be some things in some of these blogs that you go, oh, this is a bigger picture view, that maybe why they're thinking these certain ways. And so, or why something may go this way, or why something is already happening that way. So that's what my intent is. I call it, something to consider. And like at the end of some of these, you'll go, I just end it with something to consider. And that's really what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to make a statement to say this is right and this is wrong. I'm really just trying to say, from my 35 years of experience in college athletics in many different roles, working with many different people on our campus and at other campuses, that these are some thoughts that I have and have had and will come up with as I think through different things over time. So just something I'm just doing for fun, not trying to make money at it at this point, just trying to do it to be a service to folks that are out there that may want to read it.
And Lee, tell.
Well, I was going to let Lee know, just so you know, Dave wasn't blowing you off. It was his sister's Amy's birthday, so happy birthday to Amy. He had to get the dinner for his sister. So
gotcha. Well, happy birthday to Amy. So you know what? He made the right decision. Family's always more important. So that was great. I'm glad to hear him say that he did that. But still give him a hard time for me.
Oh, I always do.
Absolutely. We'll definitely have you back on down the road. But as we're letting you go, tell folks how they can follow you on Twitter, because I know anytime you post a new blog that you always put it on Twitter.
Yeah, I believe my Twitter handle, because I'm not on Twitter a lot, is at Lee Workman, I believe is what it is. I don't do that near as much as I did when I was still on staff at East Carolina, because I did it this way. I believe it's at Lee Workman is what it's called. Also, I'm on LinkedIn for those that are in the business community. I've got a LinkedIn site that I believe is as at LinkedIn Lee Workman 2 type thing. So you just search those in, you should be able to find them. And yes, usually when my blog goes up, there's a notification that goes out on LinkedIn and or my Twitter site that says a new one just went up. So.
Sounds good. Well, again, thanks so much for being so generous with your time and spending an hour and a half with us. We certainly didn't anticipate that, but the content was excellent. I know we had several viewers chiming in talking about what an excellent show it was, and I know it'll get a lot of views and listens historically as well. But stay safe, and we certainly wish you and your family nothing but the best as we're going through this challenging time, and we'd love to have you back on later in 2020.
Sure. Well, thank you all for having me. It's been my pleasure and enjoyed doing it. And yeah, I'll be glad to come back on, and you guys stay safe with your families and look forward to seeing you. And I don't know if you've noticed behind me, but there's a real pretty picture of Dowdy-Ficklin Stadium right behind me. And I can't wait for the day that we're back in an environment just like that at Dowdy-Ficklin Stadium. Everybody dressed in their purple and gold and yelling purple and gold, being loyal and bold and loud and proud. And because we're the Pirates of ECU, man. So looking forward to that day again. And same thing in Minges Coliseum. I've got a picture of a full Minges Coliseum. It just can't be seen behind me, but doing the same thing in Williams Arena at Minges Coliseum for men's and women's basketball and all of our venues with all of our sports. But looking forward to it, guys. Looking forward to seeing what the future's got for all of us. And there's a great future ahead. I know that for everybody. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Lee.
All right. Thanks so much. Take care.
Well, Bubba, that was a great conversation, man. Lee, you just feed Lee something, he goes. That's the kind of guest you want. Yeah. Makes your job a lot easier.
Absolutely. hang with me 1 second, Kyle. My phone is about to die. I'm switching over to my computer. Hopefully, it won't freeze up on me.
Yeah, one-man show. Wait a minute, guys. If you're still out there watching, we got some roundtable topics to discuss that we hit on a little bit with Lee Workman at the beginning of the show. We're going to talk about the decision the SEC made to go conference only, the decision the ACC made to go conference only +1, what that means for East Carolina in terms of losing opponents, what the American may decide to do in the coming days and weeks ahead. You assume there's going to be some adjustments to schedules. I mean, as of right now, East Carolina's playing August 29th, and then we're going to have a gap September 24th without a game if things were to stay as they are right now, which that's not likely.
Yeah, odds are that's going to change for sure. But as things stand right now on July 30th, with the Pirates starting camp tomorrow, you look at the 2020 schedule, and we're slated, of course, to open on week 0 against Marshall August 29th. And we were supposed to have the 5th off. And then the 12th, we were supposed to be traveling to Columbia, which is no longer going to take place. You knew that was probably going to be the case, but it became official with today's announcement that the SEC would be playing a 10-game conference-only schedule. And then a few weeks ago, we found out that the 19th, that game would not take place against Norfolk State. It would be bumped down the road and played in a future year. And then the next game would be September 24th, Thursday night against UCF. So right now you got a 3.5-week gap. We looked at some of the possibilities, and like you said, we referenced those early on with that interview with Lee Workman. App State, they had a game with Wisconsin scheduled. I believe that was September 19th, and that is no longer being played. So that would be an option. And I know certain folks have their thoughts on whether that game should or should not be played for various reasons. It will be played next year for the season opener down at Bank of America Stadium. You also have Coastal Carolina. They were scheduled to play Duquesne. I believe that was September 12th. So when we were going to be going to Columbia, and then also Coastal was supposed to be playing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
You were going to go ahead and say about South Carolina.
Yeah, Coastal was supposed to open the season on September 5th at South Carolina, which is obviously no longer going to happen. So that would be an option as well for us to potentially play that weekend. So we'll be interested. We'll be interested. And yeah, I hadn't mentioned Liberty yet. Liberty was scheduled to go to Syracuse, and they were also scheduled to go to, I'm trying to remember who it was, but yeah, Liberty is an option. I'm trying to remember which date, but there were certainly some options.
Open in September. They're kind of like us. Us and Liberty can play a lot of different weekends.
And we talked about a lot was made yesterday's announcement with the ACC going 10 games +1. They're, of course, playing 5 home conference games, 5 road conference games, and then that +1 game has to be either against it can be against an out-of-state team, but it has to be at home, or against an in-state opponent that can be actually on the road. So that's the direction the ACC is going. So Notre Dame, obviously, even if Notre Dame didn't have that scheduling arrangement with the ACC, a lot of folks would be lining up to play Notre Dame, but that really worked out even better for the Fighting Irish. They're going to be playing for an ACC championship this year if we have football. And so that was kind of leading me to BYU. BYU is down 5 games as of right now. Their entire month of September, where they had 2 Pac-12 opponents and 2 Big Ten opponents, that was totally wiped clean. And then their season finale, which was, I think, against Stanford. So BYU has 7 games. That's something to keep an eye on. But I really think that I think it's going to be more regional, just with everything that's going on. How about you?
I think BYU may be in a situation where they're asking the American or the Mountain West, can they be a member for 1 year? I agree with you. I think it could definitely be regional, unless it's an independent they want to come here. I mean, if BYU wants to come here, great. If Connecticut wants to come here, great. Otherwise, I would imagine it would be a regional opponent. An independent is not going to be policed by a conference on who they can or can't play. So, if Connecticut or BYU, for example, want to come play at East Carolina, we can do that. We just potentially may not be able to go there. But who knows? The American is so spread out, Bubba. We might not have those same rules in place that the ACC does about having to play a school in-state non-conference. Who knows? I would expect the American to make an announcement sooner rather than later. And in terms of waiting for the Big 12 or anybody else, I don't know why we have to do that. It's time, Mike Oresco, who I'm a big fan of, always wants to talk about being Power 6. Well, then lead from the front. Don't wait for everybody else to make a decision. You make a decision. We don't need to have to wait to see what the Big 12 is going to do. If we want to play 12 games, then play 12 games. If we want to play 11 games, play 11 games. If we want to play conference games, then just play conference games. Quit waiting around to see what everybody else is going to do. I'd like to see a statement from the American and from John Gilbert as soon as possible. I know Gilbert part of his is waiting on what the American's going to do, but I'd like to know if we are considering, if we're in talks without giving any details, if we're in talks about filling those 2 open dates, if we stick with 12 games. And Bubba, I really believe we're going to play football. To me, when you get to this point where you're working out and now you're going to practice, unless we're told tomorrow, hey, don't practice. To me, if they let these boys practice and then don't play football, that is criminal. And it also defies logic. If you're letting them have the physical contact of practicing, then let them play football. And one thing I meant to ask Lee about, what if the UNC board goes, hey, guys, we're going all online only for classes? Would we still be allowed to play football? Could the athletes stay on campus? I mean, they're already going to be practicing. So who knows? But I really believe, it may all end up being pushed back until late September. But as of right now, Bubba, the SEC is planning on playing September 26th, with the ACC opening up Labor Day night and then everybody else following suit the following weekend. So it's weird times, man. What do you think in terms of, do you feel like we're going to play? Because I still do, for whatever reason.
Part of me, I guess, just being hopeful, but I don't know. There's like,
well, then why make these?
Yeah, I agree with you there. Taking a look at things, you talk about with everything being online, and then the possibility of still playing. I really don't think that's going to happen. But in a sense,
we're the only students allowed on campus right now.
Right. I was going to say, in a sense, that's you can't create a bubble at the college level, but that's creating more of a bubble, and probably as close as you can get to a bubble. And the student athletes actually going to be in a much better spot. And Clip Brock, give him credit. I mean, he and others I've heard talk about that in recent days, whether it's on Pirate Radio or other stations or podcasts, said that they don't think it's going to happen, but if it did happen, the student athlete's in a great spot.
Yeah, you're isolated. You're being tested every day. You have not every day, but you have access to tests. You would be being isolated. I think it makes perfect sense. That's what the pros are doing. The NBA, MLB, to a point, they're isolating themselves. So, man, it's going to be interesting. I really believe, and maybe I'm way off, and Lee alluded to it. We're getting mighty late in the game, and even for them to say we're not going to have class, and maybe they're waiting on Governor Cooper next week. But how about Governor Cooper communicate some damn stuff with some people at the UNC board now? Don't wait until next week. August 10th is when students are supposed to report to dormitories and to class. And, for all intents and purposes, it's August 1st. I'd be pretty pissed if I got the call now that I'm not going to school. Some decisions need to be made. And, like I said, it would just be a shame to have them boys go out there and start practicing and then be told, we're not playing.
Something else I wanted to chime in with, schedule related, because you and I talked about this on Wednesday. and that's Boise State was supposed to have Florida State coming to the blue turf this year. Doesn't look like that's going to happen, but that would be an awesome opportunity for someone like UCF to maybe fill in. And I don't know. I really doubt it will happen, but that could be an awesome opportunity there on October 10th.
Yeah, and that's something else when people talk about traveling. These are charter flights. Nobody's flying from Orlando to Boise on U.S. Airways. I mean, it's going to be a charter. So even then, it's being isolated. I mean, I realize you still have to go through an airport. I'm not stupid, but it's a chartered flight. So, I mean, we'll see how it all plays out. But you're right. I mean, if these Group of 5 leagues could somehow play a 12-game schedule, you could have a marquee matchup between UCF and Boise State. They have common open dates now.
Yep, and earlier you referenced the Big 12 and how the Big 12 is the only conference of the so-called Power 5 that has not come clear and or come forward, I should say, and made their hand known. Just a little news about the Big 12. I saw earlier today, I think it was Bruce Feldman with The Athletic. He said that 186 football, men's and women's basketball, student athletes and staff at Oklahoma had been tested here in the last few days with 0 positives. And then also the same thing as of a couple of days ago at the University of Texas, which is just awesome news. Also, kind of shifting gears a bit.
Yeah, they need to share that information, Bubba. Whatever Oklahoma and Texas are doing, they're doing it right, and they need to share that information with all of college athletes, the entire world, really, but particularly other colleges. Whatever they're doing, whatever precautions they're taking, they're doing it the right way, so it needs to be shared with everyone else.
Sorry. Saw Dave backstage. I was going to add him in, and then all of a sudden he vanished into the night. So I'll go back and stick with that overlay. But kind of switching gears, when we were talking to Lee, he referenced the academic success of so many East Carolina student athletes. And this year we had so many programs that put academic – I started to say academic All-American, all academic for the AAC. So you take baseball and women's tennis. I know we were discussing this earlier. They had 100% of those teams. So kudos to those programs. And then you also had several others that had 85+%, including one of the swimming programs, which is unfortunately cut. But a lot of success, over 300 plus on the AAC All Academic Honor Roll, and Alec Burleson, he was named the male Scholar Athlete of the Year in the AAC. So congratulations to Alec getting it done on the field as well as in the classroom.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always good to see the kids performing well academically as well as athletically.
Something else, also. Kyle, have you been watching much MLB over the last, I guess, week now? 8 days?
Started off strong last Thursday and over the weekend. Slacked off some this week. I did catch most of the back half of the Dodgers and Astros game last night. Fell asleep about the 11th, woke up in the 13th, right before the Dodgers hit the two-run homer to start the inning, the leadoff 2-run homer. And turned up to be the go-ahead win, the go-ahead runs. The winning runs is what I'm trying to say, Bubba. And so, yeah, I've been watching some.
And, I've certainly I've watched more baseball in the last 7 or 8 days than I've watched in the last 2 or 3 years combined. And I've enjoyed it. And I certainly realized that I hadn't been watching much over the last few years because a lot of these names, they're sure those that I recognize, but a lot I'm like, who in the heck are these guys?
Yeah, I'm looking for Tom Glavine.
Yeah. But a specific moment I wanted to reference, were you watching any of the Astros-Dodgers game when the benches cleared?
I was not, no.
Okay. So you had Joe Kelly, who's the pitcher for the Dodgers, and he threw a 96 mile-per-hour fastball well up and behind one of the Astros batters. And then the next pitch was a 88 mile-per-hour slider that was down and in. And then the next pitch was about an 86 mile-per-hour slider that he struck the guy out with. And then he made some faces at him when he was walking to the Dodger dugout, and he got suspended 8 days. And a lot of folks were up in arms saying, hey, these guys for the Astros that were part of that 2017 World Series champion team that obviously so much came out about with the banging on the trash cans and stealing the signs, etc. They were up in arms saying that, hey, where are those guys' suspensions? And I get that.
Faces.
But yeah, the face that the pitcher made at the
he got suspended for making faces.
Well, it wasn't so much. I'm sure that may have been a little bit of it. It was more the pitches behind. But yeah, I definitely would not have expected him to get 8 games. But what I would say is just that 2 wrongs don't make a right, and the way he acted, it was pretty immature. But at the same time, I mean, it was just a bad situation. But at the same time, it was something that you would expect if you know anything about the game of baseball and everything that went on. You knew it was probably going to happen sooner rather than later that guys are going to be throwing at some Astros hitters. So I certainly wouldn't. I certainly don't envy those Astros players stepping in the box during the course of this season. It'll be interesting to see how many more times that happens.
They're trying to prevent that from happening. That's what the 8-game suspension.
Right. Yeah.
And
trying to make a statement.
Care of that.
Yeah. Trying to make a statement that, hey, no matter what your feelings are toward the Astros, that this behavior is not going to be tolerated. So yeah, I certainly know that that's the message of that 8-game suspension. Last but not least, before we wrap this thing up and get out of here, I certainly didn't intend on going nearly an hour and 50 minutes. But tomorrow, I know you and I will be catching up with Quincy McKinney, who played offensive line for the Pirates in 2014 and 2015, one of the most highly regarded JUCO linemen that year, and prior to coming into the Pirate program. And so we'll catch up with him tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And then tomorrow night at 8, we will catch up with JT Boyd, who's one of his teammates and a member of that offensive line room.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
But for our absent co-hosts, Dave Richmond and Kyle Barber, I'm Bubba Rosenbaum, and you have been listening and watching the Sports Objective Podcast on Facebook and YouTube Live. Until next time, go Pirates.